cataclysmic, and we're not talking about his pitching. The Missouri governor throwing out hard balls and angry words. Could he be upset at efforts this week to impeach him? Also this week is Brownback getting writer's cramp. Why Mayor James wants more women. Plus Kansas City gets a new spirit. And JJ's rising from the ashes. Those stories and more coming up on a lively, insightful and action-packed edition of Kansas City Week in Review. Welcome again, I'm Nick Haynes, taking us behind the headlines, the host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM, star political columnist and UMKC journalism professor Steve Kraske. Investigative reporter Stacey Cameron is with us from the editorial pages of the Kansas City Star, Barbara Shelley, and from The Pitch, reporter Steve Vockrodt. Cataclysm, that's a large-scale disaster, according to the dictionary, and that's how Missouri Governor Jay Nixon is defining the actions this week of the Missouri legislature, which just decided to pass the first income tax cut in 90 years and the largest tax increase in the state's history, all in the same week. A 1-cent sales tax hikes to fix up I-70 and other big highway problems in the Show Me State. That tax would bring in $8 billion over 10 years if you approved it at the ballot in November. But biggest income tax cut in 100 years and biggest tax increase at the same time. What's the logic here, Steve Kraske?
Well, you're assuming by that question there's logic there.
Okay, all right.
There's never any logic when it comes to the Missouri General Assembly or really any legislature across the country. If you talk to Republicans about what they're doing, they'll say simply put that these are two separate issues. Neither one has anything to do with the other. It's time for Missourians to experience a tax cut for the first time in 90 years. We also have to deal with roads on the other hand. So they see the two ideas as completely simpatico in a sense. Democrats say what you sort of just said. It makes no sense at all.
Why is lowering taxes, though, to keep up with Kansas, as lawmakers in Missouri see it, considered such a disaster to Governor Jay Nixon, Barbara?
Well, he's looking at the math and he's seeing that if these cuts actually take effect, they're going to take about $600 million out of the state treasury per year. He doesn't like that. What he's saying is this isn't exactly going to help anybody except, well, as the governor eloquently puts it, lawyers and lobbyists. Tax cut for lawyers and lobbyists, that's his spin. But it's mostly going to go through to people who have their businesses organized in a certain way that they deduct their income taxes from their business earnings from their personal income tax forms. The average Missourian is not going to see much of a tax cut from this. And then Nixon's people have found something in the language that, if interpreted a certain way, makes it look like they're going to say that people in the top income tax bracket don't have to pay income tax anymore.
And in this case, anyone who earns more than $9,000 a year. So they believe it, they botched the whole language in pushing this particular bill. So anybody earning more than $9,000 a year won't be paying income taxes at all, Steve Vockrodt.
Right, which would be most of us. And
well, some of us around the table. I work for public television, Steve. So,
well, It's difficult to, as you pointed out and as Steve pointed out, the logic behind this. It's why can't they see what's 5 feet in front of them? If the economy shredded revenues for so many years to where the transportation needs were eroded, then what's the logic in reducing them even further when a basic need of government is not being fulfilled? And then on the other hand, you have to raise taxes to such a drastic level.
Well, it's because they see all those businesses that have left Missouri and gone, particularly on this side of of Missouri, and have left to Kansas.
But some are coming back, and in order for Sam Brownback's tax cuts to work, businesses have to move to Kansas almost immediately, and that's not really happening in any large
Stacey.
numbers.
Well, first of all, there's no evidence that those businesses have moved across state lines because of the income tax issue. It's for other reasons. The tax issues nonetheless, but not income tax. But let's step back for a minute. That interpretation about people earning over $9,000 not paying taxes is only one interpretation of that bill. I think the more sane and what the Assembly is saying they meant to do is simply lower the highest rate. So they would drop the highest rate of people earning over $9,000 a year from 6% to once you earn over $8,000, you pay 5.5%. But there's a caveat here, a huge caveat. These tax cuts do not go into effect unless state revenue increases by $150 million over a target of 3 years. Looking back over the past 3 years, taking the highest revenue generated, and if we exceed that by 150, then the tax cuts come into place, which isn't likely to happen anytime soon. So I think this is more political grandstanding than anything else.
Wait a minute. Nixon's people are saying that $150 million doesn't even keep up with the rate of inflation. And they're saying that's not a trigger at all.
Well, they're saying a lot of things in the Nixon administration as well, is that $9,000, the top earners aren't going to pay income tax. And I don't think that's the case.
And the other thing they're saying is that they're going to veto this, Steve, but the legislature, because it is overwhelmingly Republican, can overturn a governor's veto. Would they have enough votes to do that?
Well, that's what I'm writing about in my column this week, Nick. It's very, very close. It's going to be a nail-biter of a vote, maybe a better chance to override it this year than last year when it fell short.
Back to the highway tax. Now, if you drive on I-70 on the Missouri side of state line and are fed up of all those potholes and like the idea of the state adding lanes to ease congestion, then don't hold your breath quite yet either. As one Democratic lawmaker sardonically noted, 40% of Missourians would oppose a new tax, even if it was being used to construct the landing pad for the second coming of Christ. So this is not a done deal yet, Barbara.
Oh, surely not. And in fact, you know, it hasn't even cleared the legislature yet. There's a lot of debate in the legislature about whether to do this. But I just, getting back to your original point, how are they going to sell a sales tax increase for everybody when they have just passed an income tax increase that basically benefits businesses and higher income Missourians?
And just to round off the point, this is a 1 cent increase in the sales tax, a big bite of the apple here, Nick. Missourians aren't inclined, at least historically, to go along with increases of that size.
Well, to answer Barb's question, they're not. They're not going to be able to pass this. Look, the cigarette tax hike, that failed. The transitional medical research tax here in our county failed. Missourians across the state are in no mood to see these types of taxes passed. And you start to look in some areas of Jackson County, where we're looking at 10% now tax increases, sales tax. When you add this 1 cent, I just don't see the public going for it.
Should Jay Nixon be impeached? The Missouri House Judiciary Committee began hearings on 3 articles of impeachment against the Democratic governor this week. What has the governor done that is so terribly wrong, Steve Kraske?
Well, what he did was that he signed an executive order that ties, for same-sex married couples, they can file tax returns jointly in Missouri. It's because Missouri's tax code is tied to the federal tax code. Now, Representative Nick Marshall, one of our local lawmakers here from north of the river, is saying, hey, that violates a constitutional amendment that voters passed just a year or two ago, banning same-sex marriage in Missouri. So he's saying Nixon needs to go because of that reason.
Yeah, it's not a rural legislator from a part of the state we've never heard of. It is somebody from our own metropolitan area who's behind this. And you've been writing about him this week, Steve.
Correct, and I've looked at some of the other things he's tried to pass this year, and he hasn't really gained a lot of traction on anything he's introduced, and so this is sort of his high-profile moment. And I think lawmakers, when they're pursuing things like this, they really need to think about what impeachment means and what's appropriate for impeachment, because these sorts of things, it sort of reduces some of the legislature to really carnival barkers, and when the governor, should he do something that is an impeachable offense, it's like crying wolf.
We want people who are covering these things. And Barbara Shelley, you were in Jefferson City and sitting in some of those hearings this week.
Just by chance, I was in Jefferson City and I got to sit in on the impeachment hearing. It was a big letdown, Nick. I'm sorry.
Why was that?
Hoping for drama.
You'd think this was something like, it wasn't like the Bill Clinton extravaganza in Washington?
Monica
Nothing
Lewinsky,
even close.
Not at all. It was like, well, according to chapter this and section that, and lawyers talking to each other. It got very ponderous, I'm sorry to say.
But it's not over yet because they're having more hearings next week.
Many more hours of hearings. This will go on for quite some time. And, I just want to say, we've talked about this before. This is just another example of how the Missouri House is too big, there are too many members, and the session goes on for too long, in my opinion, and these guys just do this crazy stuff to fill their time.
I just want to underscore the point. This is silliness writ large. This is GOP overreach. They are hurting themselves by going up against a Democratic governor who's very popular. If the issue was valid, it would be one thing. At best, this is a legalistic disagreement.
Has there been a governor in Missouri who's been impeached before, Steve?
No, never before. We've got a Secretary of State impeached a few years ago, but never a governor.
And look, even if he is impeached, the likelihood that they convict him under the articles of impeachment is even further stretched. The House has to approve the articles of impeachment, then it goes to the Senate, which would appoint a 7-judicial panel, and 5 of those judges would have to vote him out. It's not going to happen. Steve said it right off the bat. Logic when it comes to the General Assembly in Missouri, throw it out the window.
Was Governor Sam Brownback getting writer's cramp this week in Kansas, signing so many new measures into law, many of those bills you've been reading and hearing about for weeks, finally becoming the law of the state, as Brownback inks his signature on a measure nullifying local gun laws, ending teacher tenure as part of a new school finance bill, and a bill separating Kansas from the federal government's authority on health care issues. Carol Damon writes, as I walked through the doors of Menorah Medical Center this week, I noticed a sign stating that firearms were prohibited. Do I take it that sign will now be coming down? Is that what this bill nullifying local gun laws means, Stacey?
Well, it could, because you take now in places like Johnson County and some other municipalities, Wyandotte County most in particular, who have put some regulations on open carry and on gun registrations, or if we look in other parts of Kansas where we'd have government employees having to register or let their employers know that they carry guns, it's going to nullify that. What proponents of this bill want is one law statewide that lets gun owners and gun carriers know what they can and can't do across the borders of Kansas. And it does take out, for some buildings, the ability to prohibit the carrying of guns, such as the hospital there.
You know, on the school finance bill that was signed, a lot of the focus has been, Barbara, on the teacher tenure part of the issue. But in Johnson County, it also allows for a change in the cap on how much they can raise locally to increase the sales tax. Isn't that a big win? That's something they've wanted for a long, long time.
Well, it's something they wanted, but the superintendents are saying they're cutting so many other things, like funding for at-risk students, et cetera, that they're not going to get as much of a bounce from it as they would like.
And what about on that federal health care compact that was signed this week? Does that mean that Kansas now will no longer have to abide by any of the provisions, for instance, of the Affordable Care Act?
Not yet, Nick. This has to be approved by Congress and the Democratic Senate, and is not going to go along with anything remotely like this, so don't hold your breath over this.
So what should we make of these 3 laws that were signed this week?
Well, this is the legislature exerting its will. You know, from my take, looking at the world from a political standpoint, Nick, this local option budget you just mentioned, a big win for local education authorities, despite what Barb said they've wanted it for a long time. I think politically this gives Sam Brownback a little bit of a boost over here. It staves off the moderate defection from his re-election campaign that he's been looking at here.
But let's point out the hypocrisy here. The Kansas legislature is saying they want to take away local control of local municipalities to control firearms regulations, but then they want to give local control to school boards, saying local control is important. Well, which is it? Is it Topeka's going to have the power base, or is it going to be locally controlled? They speak out of both sides of their mouth depending on what the issue is, and it's ridiculousness here in Kansas.
This was supposed to be the week the much heralded KCI task force would reveal its final recommendation for the airport, but a slew of remaining questions prevented the mayor's appointed panel from making its official recommendations this week. They've been meeting since last May. What are those lingering questions that prevented them from ending this long drawn-out saga this week? Steve?
Well, you've got there's some interesting dynamics playing out with this commission. I don't get the sense that there's a whole that there may be a majority opinion that's starting to form on this, but there's some members who are pretty skeptical of what's before them. And you've had one member speak up publicly and say, we don't have enough information to pick one or the other over, you know, one saying one's better than the other because there's a lot of numbers missing and a lot of things that were said at the outset of this discussion as a need for KCI have turned out to be spacious, dubious, or not true. And so some members are saying, well, can't we just list pros and cons for these 3 options? But what you see is a move towards, there's some push towards making one recommendation over the 2 others.
Well, Barbara, in other airport-related news this week, Spirit Airlines announced that it was launching new service from KCI to 5 cities starting this summer. Spirit will fly non-stop to Chicago, Dallas, Detroit, Las Vegas, and Houston. The group Save KCI, that has been fighting a new single terminal design plan at the airport, says Spirit's arrival is proof that Kansas City doesn't need a billion-dollar reconstruction to attract new flights. So how are city officials responding to that?
Well, I don't think anybody can be anything but happy to have a new airline coming into KCI. And, you know, I'm sure once they get their act together. They can spin it any way they want. That this just shows we do need a new terminal because more airlines are moving in here, so we got to have more space or whatever.
Steve.
You know, to me, Nick, this delay in the decision on what to do with the airport just increasingly sheds light on this idea that this is a really, really tough decision. For all the reasons Steve pointed out and more, exactly how to proceed here, it's murky waters at best. The public blowback against changing the current layout has been stronger than anybody anticipated. City officials are really on the hook on this one.
Stacey.
Well, and Steve hit, the nail on the head, both Steves, to my left and to my right. This was something that, the administration, Mayor's administration thought was just going to be rubber stamped by this commission. And a lot of people were concerned that they would do that. And they clearly haven't when they're saying we need more information here. We can't make these decisions. And I think one thing that the Spirit Airlines shows us is that's a discount air carrier. And people are raising questions, would they have come to Kansas City if there were one terminal and the landing fees had been higher? Likely is, chances are they wouldn't, because their fares are rock bottom. And so I think that's one reason why we really haven't seen anyone come out and say Spirit's proof that we need to expand, because I think had we expanded, Spirit wouldn't be here.
And Nick, I think that the long process of hearings has weakened the case for a single new terminal. As I said, a lot of the claims that the administration made, the federal government's insisting we have one because of security, and then the federal guy comes in and says, we're fine with what you got there.
Right.
And same, the airlines want a new one. We're good with this. It just really weakens their case.
The place closed 5 years ago. Johnson County taxpayers now own it. But according to a front-page story in the Kansas City Star this week, some are fuming about that, noting that the $3.6 million the county spent to purchase and stabilize the facility over the last 30 months could have been used to address other public needs. Is the county willing to say they shouldn't have bought the facility and now unload it? Steve Vokrot, even before the Star article, you have been reporting and digging into this story. Are they ready to unload this?
They're not ready. The Johnson County Commission is pretty split on this. When the county bought it, it was a different commission, and there was one member at the time who was pretty skeptical of it, but they went ahead and bought it anyway. Since then, there have been a round of elections, and now you have about a 4-3 split on that commission, with a possible, one who may swing one way or the other. The opponents of it, so the majority are opposed right now, and what they say right now is they're waiting for the chairman, Ed Eilert, to come up with an idea, and with staff to come up with an idea of what are we going to do with this that isn't going to cost a lot of money, more money than they've already put into a building that still doesn't have a use right now.
No, this was going to be the Museum of Suburbia place. They got rid of that idea. They're still looking for a potential use for this.
Well, yeah, the issue here is to renovate it and to put a museum in there. You're looking at $10 million to $15 million. And a lot of folks now during a re-election campaign for Ed Eilert, he's being challenged by a couple folks looking at these decisions right now in the heart of that campaign saying, I don't know if we can do this and sell it to the voters right now. I think it's going to be increasingly a difficult sell. Who's clamoring for a Johnson County History Museum out there at a cost of $15 million?
Is this one of the dividing issues in what will be one of the big local election races this year? The campaign for the head of Johnson County government, as Steve Kraske talks about. The current leader, Ed Eilert, is facing a challenge. Here are the two people, fellow Commissioner Ed Peterson, former state lawmaker Patricia Leitner. You've been writing about Ed Peterson and Ed Eilert. I mean, is this issue coming up in that race, Steve?
Interestingly, no, because Ed Peterson and Ed Eilert have largely been in lockstep on this issue.
Right. I don't know if that's a great campaign issue anyway. I mean, it wasn't a terrible decision to buy that building. It is an iconic building. They got it at fire sale prices.
That's true.
The problem is, sitting on it, that's what's going to cost a lot of money.
So what is the defining issue in that campaign then between these three individuals?
Well, so far it's shaping up as, how do you proceed with government services and how do you pay for them? Ed Eilert, he told me at one point that Ed Peterson wants to raise taxes at every opportunity he gets. Ed Peterson says it quite a bit differently. He says, well, we have to talk about how we're going to pay for all these county services to retain an affluent county that that's popular and that has performed well. And he's not saying we have to raise taxes, but it has to be part of the discussion when you're looking at both sides of the ledger.
Yeah, this is a county very much at a crossroads, Nick, facing issues it's really never faced before. I think this is also going to be a campaign about leadership style. Which candidate can take this county into the future facing issues like poverty, funding for school, all kinds of issues that haven't been on the table before, infrastructure concerns, that kind of thing. Which candidate can step forward and lead this county most effectively?
Barbara.
It's going to be an interesting campaign. We'll
Yes,
hear a
it
lot
is.
about Johnson County.
Shortly after his election, Mayor Sly James was summoned to a meeting of business leaders. On his arrival, he noticed one overwhelming similarity. Everyone in the room was a white male except him. Women were totally absent.
Regardless of where I am, there generally aren't very many women in those rooms when I show up. There have been times when it's been such an absence so noted under the circumstances that it required some comment, such as, if I'm not coming back until you change it, type of a comment, just to kind of get the point across.
James is now trying to change the face of leadership via a women's empowerment initiative. Research by the University of Kansas details the problems. Women are underrepresented on city-appointed boards and commissions, largely because no one asks them to serve. The Women's Foundation of Greater Kansas City wants to help change that, launching an appointments project to create a talent bank of women and minorities. Currently, only 1/3 of city boards and commission seats are held by women. But is it really because no one has simply asked them, Barbara?
Well, I don't think it's as simple as that. I think a lot of women, men and some women will put their names in and say, hey, I'm interested in this. Women haven't done that in large numbers, and the research that they did, the Women's Foundation found some structural things. They hold meetings at times that aren't convenient if you're a mom and you have to pick your kids up from school or whatever. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's certainly, reams of talented women in this area to serve on boards and commissions.
Some people, though, have looked at it and said, wow, we're now going to have an appointment book, a talent bank of women and minorities. That sounds a lot like Mitt Romney's binders filled with women. Stacey.
Well, it does sound a lot like that. Just you've put a nicer, softer name on it. Look, there wasn't really anything wrong, other than the language he used, Mitt Romney, in having a candidate pool of talented women who wanted to serve that he could go to. No difference than in this. It's just the difference that you had a Republican say it one way and a more liberal-leaning, think tank or foundation saying it this way. But to go back to Barbara's point, she pointed out there's a series of factors here. Women sometimes aren't asked. Women, according to this study, aren't familiar somewhat with the procedure. And then, two, a lot of women find more, I would say, beneficial ways to help in civic government. You see a lot involved in foundations or in church groups. And, getting involved with government, sometimes you don't see the ability to maybe make things move. And so in this instance, there are only 1/3 of women serving as board commissioners here in the city.
And when they are involved, they're relegated basically to the arts and human services areas. Right. They're never tapped, Steve Ockrott, to areas like financial and economic development panels, which are often the big key decision-making panels.
Well, sometimes they are. I mean, Susan Stanton was on the municipal commission that Sly James appointed, and she was one of the key members. And it's dry reading, but I think it should be required reading for a lot of folks for the work product that they generated. Roseanne Paris is the chairwoman of the Chamber of Commerce.
But the numbers aren't what they should be. The numbers aren't what they should be nationally. If you look at this whole issue from the 10,000-foot standpoint, Nick, 20% of the U.S. senators are women these days. You look at Sunday morning talk shows. I just saw a study just a couple of weeks ago. This many men who are single guest talk show guests on Sunday morning. This many women. Women heroes in cartoons. Those problems, those intractable, subtle kinds of problems when it comes to women representation continues to haunt this society.
I just think it's kind of interesting in the research. One thing women said, some women are saying is, I don't have time to just go sit around in a bunch of meetings. And one of the recommendations is to make meetings more efficient. And I think that is actually a constructive step for everybody.
And finally, 14 months after it was blown apart in a fiery explosion, one of Kansas City's iconic restaurants is finally making its return. In a big announcement this week, the owners of JJ's joined the mayor in revealing they will open for business just across the street from their original plaza location on the lobby floor of the new Polsinelli office building. When the new JJ's opens later this summer, will that be the most visible symbol of closure on the February 2013 plaza tragedy?
It probably is. I mean, we still have a number of lawsuits pending that are going to continue to bring what happened in JJ's in the headlines. But I think one of the great things here is seeing a local restaurant on the plaza. You know, when we look at the plaza or we look at the Power & Light, there's so many chain restaurants, the Cheesecake Factories of the world and the Bowlings. To see JJ's, a local institution, come back, I think that's the right direction.
Barbara?
Yep, I think a lot of people really are devoted to that place and should be more popular than ever when it opens up.
I'm happy for the Francais brothers. My only concern is that folks who are sitting on the patio of this new restaurant will be looking over the old site of JJ's, and that's going to be difficult for a lot of folks.
Well, I'm in agreement generally that it's good to see that JJ's going to go back in there. I had heard that he was looking at maybe other areas out off the plaza, Midtown type areas, and for him to go back there, it does sort of close the loop a bit in a way.
And that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.